order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
and for which
and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with all.
That's really hard to synchronize. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Sabal?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Bahrain?
Here. Item 1D, summary of current events. Ms. Samaniego, Superintendent.
Okay, good evening, board members and staff out there and members of the community. Just a few things. Today was the first day for our teachers to return back to school after 23 weeks of not being at their school site since March the 6th. So all the principals had all their staff show up today, had meetings and welcomed their staff. And we also had my welcome back orientation today with virtually. Very different welcome back orientation indeed. Also, to just give an update on the technology device request forms, the window opened up on Monday, August the 3rd at 8 a.m. and it closes this Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. at 3 p.m. And so far we have over 1,000 requests that have been placed for devices. So I think we still have about 700 more devices in total that we can still provide to students. So it's only Tuesday. We still have 3 more days left for parents to fill out that form. And again, they can fill it out via our website. There is a link there, or they can call every school and the school secretaries will take down their information and fill it out electronically. So we're right on track. And those devices will be given out on the week of the 10th. So next week at every site, those families that were able to receive one will be able to pick it up at the school sites and fill out a form which makes them responsible for the device. The other thing is obviously we still continue to work on our reopening plans, and I'll be providing more updates on that during the agenda.
Okay, very good. Item number 2, governing boards. Anybody have any reports, members of the board?
No reports.
Let me just make a comment about some comments that I've gotten within the last 2 days regarding attendance during the pandemic. It's been very interesting that I had a parent ask me how her child was going to get to school living in Agua Prieta, and how that was going to be something the district was going to address. And immediately my thought went to the situation of residents. And so I asked the gentleman, where do you live? And they said, well, the child goes to school as an American citizen. And of course, I didn't want to get into all of the ramifications of citizenship and residence and all that stuff. The point being that I know at the end of the year, when we had graduation, there was a question asked of the administration regarding how the administration was going to address the situation where parents weren't being allowed to come across the border if we had a graduation ceremony. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and this is the only reason I'm mentioning that, is that addresses a very serious problem that we have in this community. I mean, that was very innocently asked, and the information was innocently trying to be gotten. But the point being that emphasizes the fact that we have many, many students that live in Agua Prieta. They go to the Douglas Public Schools, and now under the situation, they're having a hard time, some of them, and I don't know if they've seen it yet. Some may not get across the border because I think one of the provisions is if they're attending school, they'll let them across. I'm not sure. But the point is this, that as good a job as the Douglas School District does with determining residents and all those things, there's always those that slip through the cracks. We're very vigilant. I know the district's very vigilant about that. But this just re-emphasizes, I mean, the people asking me, how are we going to address that when you have to be a resident? You have to live in the Douglas School District to go to school legally. And that just kind of focuses and emphasizes that we still have a situation. These people innocently asked and admitted that their children were going to school over here and didn't live here. So I just wanted to point that out. And of course, then I always am very, very quick to mention that as hard as we try and we do the best we can, the caravan that's seen on G Avenue every day around 2:30 or 3 o'clock when those charter schools let out that head directly for the border, that's where the different consideration and concern ought to be, not with the Douglas schools. Okay, anyway, that's my report, and it's just a comment. Business office, Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Board President, and members of the board. My report is my monthly report. My cash report is for the month of July, the first month of the fiscal year, of the school year, and there's, of course, just not all of the salaries, encumber, and benefits and stuff. So that's why you see still a very high percentage of the budget remaining, but it's typical on the month of July. Any questions you may have on that report?
Members of the board, the only question I'm going to ask is I always do, are you feeling good about the finances for the coming year? Are you still feeling good about the revenues and the funding?
Yes, sir. Everything it's in place. Everything is good.
Okay, good. We don't want any shortfalls. We don't want any situations where we didn't get funded on that or whatever the situation might be, because a lot of things are up in the air right now and uncertain. All right. Dr. Gomez has a question.
Mr. Soto, when are you going to be done with the last fiscal year with your books?
We're still on the period of encumbrance right now, Dr. Gomez. Typically, we have until September 30th to finalize everything.
Oh, okay.
As of right now, it's where we're still in the process of closing everything.
Okay, I didn't know you had that long. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other members of the board, any questions regarding the finances or any questions, Mr. Soto?
No questions.
E2.
No questions. No questions.
Thank you. E2, enrollment report. Mrs. Cox, is she on the phone?
Thank you.
Yes.
And of course, Denise, you can do a lot more than give an enrollment report if you'd like. If there's anything that you feel needs to be brought to the attention of the board regarding anything in HR personnel matters.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. President, board members, Mrs. Samaniego, community. So currently we have 3,977 students enrolled. At the present time, Clawson Elementary School is fully staffed, so we have all teachers fully certified. Sarah Marley, also fully staffed. Ferris is fully staffed. Stevenson is fully staffed, and Joe Carlson is fully staffed. Huber, we are still in need of a 6th grade math teacher. At Raybury Middle School, we are in need of an 8th grade social studies teacher. And at the high school, we currently have an art position, a math position, and a world history position. We do have long-term subs that are covering these vacancies for the time being, but we will continue to look for appropriately certified teachers. We also, as of last Friday, have about 301 students that are enrolled to attend school starting August 17th. They will be attending our school.
Okay, any of those situations causing you a problem in the buildings with the approach, the system that we're using presently?
No, No, we don't foresee any problems. We're trying to figure out the best possible way to deal with this new situation, but we don't foresee any problem.
Okay, very good. Did you want to add anything to that, Ms. Samaniego?
No, and you know, these long-term subs, I just want to remind everybody that I did say that during the first quarter, or during the time that we remain during online, we're not going to be needing subs on an on-call basis. However, these individuals that are filling in these positions right now, these vacancies, are returning long-term subs with experience that have been working for DUSD in other capacities, so they're going to continue on that. And obviously, the 301 students that have requested to attend school 5 days a week, that is for the free on-site learning spaces. And we are going to be addressing those in looking at priority, obviously, for our students with ESS services, ELL services, McKinney-Vento homebound foster children. We're going to try to address those first before we allow anybody else. And so every school has either 2 or 3 learning spaces available. And I did share to parents during my virtual town hall meeting last Friday that what that learning space would look like and what it doesn't look like, because there was a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about sending the kids to school every day. So I think I clarified that. And we will be providing some opportunities for some of these students to attend school every day.
Okay, very good. Item 3, Douglas High School new construction update, sketch architecture company. Who's going to do that? Mr. Soto?
Mr. Soto, you want to get started? And then I think our gentlemen are going to call in. They're already on. Hi, Rob and Alan.
I see them already. Hi.
Good evening. Welcome. So
Thank you.
this is your opportunity. Our governing board members do already have the PowerPoint that you have before you on your computers and that you can start sharing and discussing. So it's all yours.
Let me, before they get started,
Uh-huh.
will the public be able to see
Do you want to
this?
just kick off with the first few
We
slides?
can
Yeah.
post it on the website. They won't be able to see it right now.
Yeah.
They will?
Yeah.
Oh, are you,
Okay.
okay, all right.
That's good, very good. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob and Alan.
Rob, you there?
Alan.
Rob, do you want to just go ahead with the first 10, 12 slides there, and then I'll end off on the remaining slides?
Sure. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Going to have to bear with us. Obviously, we can't see what you have, and you can't see what we have in front of us, so we'll kind of
Website.
go through this a little bit. So the first slide should be a cover slide. The second slide should say educational specifications. So what we want to briefly do is kind of tell you what we've accomplished since we started the project. Some of the things that we've accomplished, my partner, Molly Smith, with Think Smart Planning, has done an extensive programming session with the parents, the teachers, administrators, staff, students on the project, and she went through and produced an educational specifications. And so it's about, that document is about a 200-page long document, and that's been completed. The next slide, and as part of this process, we had to meet with people. We couldn't meet, obviously, with people directly, so we had to change our approach. We did Survey Monkeys, we did YouTube videos, we did Zoom meetings. We did as much technology as we could to accomplish the data that we produced in the report. With that, my team, the architectural team, we went and did a survey of the existing campus, taking an inventory of what was there. But believe it or not, we didn't actually have a comprehensive campus drawings of the entire campus. We produced documents for that. And so that was from that information, Molly was able to figure out what we had and what we were going to need and what the SFB was requiring. So then with that, she produced this document. That is what we used for the basis for our design concepts, which I'll talk about in a second.
The other thing that we got accomplished here is that we had a topographic survey, ALTA survey of the campus. We did not have a comprehensive civil survey of the campus. That's been performed and that's been completed. We also did a geotechnical analysis of the site. So we're looking at for soil conditions, retention, things like that. So that was accomplished as well. So that's the slide number 4. Slide number 5 is our conceptual site plan that we're looking at. So what the design concept that we're looking at is going just north of building J and K on the campus. So the new building area would be east of the gym and north of J and K on the campus, and it would be in the practice area of the field. We're proposing as part of the school facility board, we have to provide parking for parents and staff, and so we're looking at adding parking just north of the gym building, and we're proposing a fire lane emergency access that would connect Eddy Avenue and Australia, and we would take out the one district building that's there. There's a old storage district storage building maintenance. We're gonna take that building offline, and we're going to move district maintenance over a street in the building across the district building across the street, and then what we're planning to do is reconfigure the north practice field area where the baseball is and football is being done, and we're looking at a combined field activity there. And then the plan is to take the portable building out and produce a student plaza area that would come off the main campus area as you're going north to the campus. And then we looked at multiple concepts, multi-story buildings, one building, multiple buildings, and it was decided by the committee and the team that the best option for the school was to do multiple buildings. We're looking at 4 buildings, and one of those buildings is a cafeteria building. One of those is an academic building, which is all classrooms and science rooms. The other building would be ESL and ESS, and the school nurse would move over there and support. And then the last building to the furthest to the north would be CTE, technical education. And we're going to take the weight room that's across in the district building and move it across back over to here. So it would be adjacent to the practice field and the gym. So that's a quick overview of that. So when you go to the next slide, which would be slide number 6, that's a detail of the proposed classroom building with science rooms and classrooms. So it has 16 teaching spaces that are universal classrooms and 9 science classrooms, as well as teacher space and professional work areas and bathrooms. Slide number 7 is going to be we call it the Student Commons building. So we're going to have a cafeteria and kitchen will be relocated to this building over here. And we would have the bookstore, the technology self-help, career and counseling would be over in this building as well. Slide 8 is the support building. This would have the nurse area there, students' meeting rooms, drama / large lecture hall, arts classrooms. ESS would be there, and this would be housed in this building there. And then slide 9 is the career technical education building, which would have the physical education weight room, healthy lifestyle area. Then we would have all of our CTE classrooms. So we would have, we're looking at a new program, which is construction technology, TV, law enforcement, engineering lab, a drafting lab, and then we would have oh gosh, I'm trying to remember here. I can't see it on my slide. I believe it's engineering lab is what that is. So those are all the CTE classrooms that would be on the north building. And the total square footage of that would be 87,500, which is what the school facility board has approved for funding for the project. And incidentally, we reviewed the 87,000 square foot requirements and programming, and we confirmed that the school does need the additional square footage and needs all the 87,000 square feet for teaching spaces. So we agreed with the state. Our numbers were jiving with what they were showing as well. Slide 10 and 11 are building elevations. We're looking at basically a stucco buildings. And a lot of what's driving the exterior of these elevations are what we can afford in our budget, which we'll talk about shortly. So 11, 12, and 13 are kind of conceptual elevations. And with that, I'll leave it as any questions that you have on. That's a quick overview of what we've been accomplished. We've submitted schematic design packages to the school facilities board. We're waiting for comments from them. We're moving into design development. Where we start to look at a lot more of the building systems and costing. We're evaluating different building systems to get us the best value for the money that we have to spend.
Okay, if you want to pause there for a second, I'm going to ask the board members if they have any questions regarding any one of the drawings that they saw there or any questions on the project at all. And that's before we get to the finances. Members of the board?
Oh, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Lindemann.
Mr. Lindemann.
I just have one question. Am I on?
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
You are, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I just had one question. Will the new buildings ultimately match what we have in the old buildings?
No, they will not match because the old buildings were masonry. Now, one of the things that we're looking at is to see if masonry is something that we can accomplish. I think the design team and the executive group that's involved, we would like to see a masonry building. If we can afford that and we can make it in the budget, that is certainly something that we're going to look at. So that's one of the systems we're evaluating right at the moment. So I don't have an answer yet. We are working on that. We should have some information in the next couple weeks on that. But so it's going to be a different building style than what we have out there now.
Perhaps the color could match.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yeah, colors, textures. We're going to try to bring it all together. We're not quite there yet. This is, again, kind of a rough conceptual elevation. I think as we get into more detailed, we'll be tweaking those things. We've got a couple of different ideas on how we can do it, but right now the biggest thing is we've got a very, very tight budget, and it's very, very limiting on what we can accomplish. So it has to be a very simple building, but very elegant.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, any other board members? Let me ask a quick question. Looking at those elevations, none of those are two-story, correct? They're all single-story?
Single story.
Right, everything's single story, correct.
Well, what about the roof? In keeping with the tradition of the school, or let's say the motif, are you going to try to, I think every wing at that high school has got the Spanish tile on it. What kind of a roof are you projecting there?
We're gonna have a parapeted building, and the reason why we're gonna do, obviously, it's a cost issue.
Right.
Okay. Putting in a sloped roof or an appearance grade roof is additional cost that we don't have in the budget. So our plan is to go with a low sloped roof, single ply roofing the school facility board has requirements for the roofing materials that we have to comply with. And we're going to put all of our AC units, all of our equipment on the roof. So there won't be anything on the ground like it is now. Right now, we have a lot of ground-mounted AC units and things. That will all be on the roof.
Okay, very good, thank you. Board members, any other questions regarding the first pages? All right, do you want to go ahead and proceed with the costs, the estimated costs?
Sure, I'd be happy to jump in and move ahead with that. Thank you very much. Hopefully some of you can see the slides over there, and if not, I'll try and just elaborate, so bear with me if I'm being a little redundant. But the first slide that I put together over here, I took 10 schools that were built in the last few years, and I adjusted the costs for 2020 costs and adjusted them for Douglas costs to see where we were with what the SFB had given us versus what the cost of construction of a school really is. And what I came up with was I took 10 schools, and these were in the lower percentile, so these certainly weren't the most expensive schools. I would say lower percentile would sort of tell you more, would be very accurate. And what you can see on the slide, for those of you that can see the slide, is that the average price per square foot for the 10 schools worked out at $215 a square foot. And now there's a little bit of computation and a mathematical extrapolation here, because I took our landscaping and our site improvements and I kind of integrated it in with what we were able to pull out with these 10 schools, so that we were talking kind of apples and apples. And so $215 is the average going price for a school, including site work. Now, looking at the next slide, herein lies our dilemma. The SFB has given us a total of $188.67. For those that can see the slide, it's item number 3 that are over here. So you can see we have a significant shortfall. SFB, obviously through no fault of theirs, just haven't been able to allocate the kind of funding that we really need to build the kind of school that we would really like to build over here. So we're a little bit handcuffed, but we're going to figure it out. So right at this stage in time, we have $188.67 per square foot allocated by the SFB, and we have a $215 square foot for the comps, for recent comps that have been extrapolated and brought up to 2020 costing. You can see we have a significant difference there. So what we've had to do there, and as Rob was saying earlier on, we would love to put a tiled roof up. We'd love to put up a brick walls and literally make it match exactly with the existing school. But unfortunately, we're a little bit hamstrung over here. And where we're at right now is we've pulled out some preliminary numbers, and we believe we can build the school for right around the price that the SFB has given us. So we're right around $189, $190 a square foot, which is what the SFB has allocated. And that's kind of where we're at, unfortunately. I wish we could get a little bit more money, but that's about all that they've given us. So moving on to the next slide, what I wanted to show you there was that we have how that money is allocated. We have the building construction, which is about $13,847,000. Then we have soft costs, and included in that soft costs of $2.129 million is the fees for architects, project managers, civil fees, technology, and we have 2 large items included over there for various different permitting and plan review fees, etc. And so we have and one large item which I think we have to keep over here is we've put in a 5% contingency. So we have about $825,000 that we want to keep as a reserve, because we know that when you start building, there are going to be things happening. We're certainly not, as we discussed way back when, we're not going to be having change orders unnecessarily, but things do happen. So we've set aside so that we don't get caught with funds. We set aside $825,000, so that gives us a total of $2.129 million. And then we have about $1 million, which is furniture, fixture, and equipment for right around $450,000. And then we have the technology, which is everything that we need to make the computers and everything work, for around $500,000. So if we take those three figures combined, $13.8 million, $2.1 million for the soft costs, about $1 million for the technology and the computers, that brings us up to 16.9, and I'm rounding out here, $16.9 million, or right around $194. As you can see there, technically speaking, we have a shortfall against what the SFB has given us. They've given us a gross figure of $15.5 million. So what we're doing right now to make this work is we're actually going through a bunch of various different value engineering and constructability feasibility studies over here. We feel confident that we will get the number down, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we wish we could give you the kinds of finishes that you'd like here. We're going to still give a very desirable building. It will still be very aesthetically attractive, and certainly it will be functional, but unfortunately we are tied by the SFB numbers. The next slide that I put together...
Before you get off of that, sir...
Alan, the board have questions?
Before you get off of that page, I think it's important. I have a question, and maybe the other board members do. The allocation by the SFB is short, if I'm correct, $468,594 from what you've already presented.
And that's based on... And that is based on some conceptual estimating that we've done. Bear in mind, this is an initial conceptual estimate, and there are obviously things that we're messing around with over here to get the numbers down. So, for example, you can have your perimeter envelope could be done in anything from, on the very cheap end, you could have metal siding all the way up to brick wall. But that would obviously cost a whole lot of money. So somewhere in the middle there, we're looking at some kind of a finish over there that meets this budget. And we've got some good ideas as to how we're going to be able to bring the numbers down to bring it to the SFB number. I'm not panicking at this stage. I think we can do it, and I think we can control it. But we just wanted to bring it to your attention. And the SFB admit that their number is very tight. They wish they could give us more, but as they say, they just literally are bound by the various powers that be on that side over there. So yeah, the unfortunate situation right now is we're right on the edge, and technically, based on this conceptual estimate, we are about $400,000 over. We do have some, as I say, we're going to be putting some options together, some value engineering, some constructability issues that we've been working on over the last few weeks, and we hope to be able to bring to you the good news that we're going to bring this within the budget and still keep that contingency, which we want to keep that 5% for any unforeseen circumstances that crop up. I don't know if you have any questions at this stage about the finances. I'll be more than happy to try and answer them as best as I can.
Hey, Alan, can I bring a point up for just for a second that I think maybe...
Sure.
Just so that everybody knows that, Alan and E-Plus and Sketch have been working together on this. Believe me, every day we're talking about, and we, these numbers are, we don't have a crystal ball, so I just want to make sure everybody understands that, there's a lot going on right now in the economy. There's a lot of things that are in flux, and we're doing the best that we can to project where we're going to be by early December-ish when we start to go out to bid. So we'll be updating these numbers, and we'll be giving you information as we get it. We've got some strategies on how to save money or even to get additional money, and that we're working on that as well. So, because some of the things that have been requested too, we've had some discussions with staff as well. They want some certain things to be done as well, and we've committed to at least trying to get it done. And if we can, we will. If the bidding is good and we hit a great window and we hit the right market, we'll be able to do additional items. So we'll have some things that are kind of things that aren't absolutely necessary, but things that we'd like to see happen. So those are on the table. We have some alternates that we're proposing, so that if everything goes well, we'll be able to do some of those other activities. We're keeping our fingers crossed.
When you mentioned...
Some of the considerations...
Alan?
No, excuse me a minute. This is difficult to do this like we're doing it, but we're going to do the best we can. I think it's important, and I think we discussed it when we first met at an open board meeting, that when you said you're going over all staff considerations, we specifically talked about when we get into change orders, and we want to make sure that staff, if they have a wish list, that's wonderful and that's fine, but those things have to be approved by the committee, and that no change order gets approved based on something that was casually mentioned by a staff member. And I know that. I just want to say that so that everybody's aware that, I've seen it happen before where the architects and the contractors come back and said, well, the principal said they wanted that room painted that color and they wanted a little bit larger, and we said we didn't ask for that. So anyway, I just want to make sure that's clear.
No, thank you for bringing that up. You're 100% correct, sir. And I can assure you that change orders are something that we don't take kindly to, and we would turn a change order upside down and inside out before we would even consider it. So the only thing, and I use the word change order, the only thing that we want to keep that reserve fund for is if we do hit a problem that is totally unforeseen. But absolutely, as we said to you at the outset, we're watching change orders. That's not something that we want to get involved with.
Okay, great. Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
One thing I want to bring up, if I could, one thing I want to bring up on that is that the 5% contingency that's put inside is money. So if we are lucky and things go well, we don't have any conditions or any problems on the job site, that money can be rolled back into the project, and we can do some of these supplementary items that we're talking about. So just be aware of that money is the district's money. It's not to be spent willy-nilly. That only for a specific purpose. We are required to have that contingency with the SFB as well, and that money will not be released until the end of the project by the SFB as well. So,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Oh, that one fellow that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. President?
Okay.
Mr. Lindemann?
Mr. President?
Mr. Lindemann.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, thank you. I just wanted to mention that if I'm not mistaken, the high school roof is a metal roof, and I don't know if that's a cost savings to match the new construction, but it is a metal roof.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because we're not totally discarding the possibility of a metal roof with a good seal on it, which actually could work well. The SFB in their specifications don't like it, but I think when we go back to them, we're going to put everything on the table. And they have to give a little bit, because they know that their numbers are tight. We can't guarantee what they want or what they will accept, but I'm glad you brought the roof up. If we have to, and we can save money with a metal roof, that certainly is up for consideration. And so the next slide that I've shown over here, for those that can see it, is a Gantt chart that we put together showing when we're actually going to be ready to break ground. And unfortunately, I know the circumstances are difficult over here. We're all working from different parts over here. But in broad strokes, where we're at over here is we have finished the schematic design, which is what we're talking about now. It's roughly on target. We said that that would be approximately end of July, so we're very close over there. The next major item that we're launching into now are the design drawings. We're hoping that those design drawings will be completed, ready for the next phase by the middle of September. So the middle of September, we go into the final construction drawings, which we hope to have completed early in November. During that whole time period, there's a lot going on. We're out there and we're interviewing contractors, and we're looking at various different options, and we're putting all this trade work together to get ready for the bidding. So in essence, after the CDs are completed, which is roughly the first week in November, we put the plans in for approval, and we know that that can be a kind of a difficult thing. We really don't know exactly how long it can take, but based on previous experience, we think we can get it out of the city and ready for permitting right around the last week of December, the first week in December. At that stage in time, we'll be in a position to award the bid. We'll have done the pre-bids. We'll have done the qualifications. I just want to maybe mention for those of you that are interested, we're going out and doing what's called a qualified bidder selection process. And what we do there is we select about 20 or 30 builders, as many as we feel comfortable with, that we think could do the job. And we get them to, we talk with them, and we get them to come to a process, an interview process. And from that process, we'll select somewhere between 3 and 5 that will then be going into the pre-bid. And between those 3 and 5, they duke it out, and then the lowest bid wins at that stage. So what the benefit of that is that we're not going hard bid with anybody and everybody off the street, so that we've got a guy that's used to building little houses and all of a sudden he wants to build a school. We would literally eliminate him right in the qualified stages, and he'd never make it into the pre-bid round. So even though this is competitively bid, it's done with a process in mind to make sure that we want the right people bidding and that we select ultimately the right 3 to 5 that are going against each other for the final construction.
Okay.
And so we hope that we'll have a groundbreaking ceremony literally by the end of December, January. And that doesn't leave us a lot of time, because that would give us approximately 9 months to finish the job. I think at that stage in time, it is doable, but it's also going to be a function of COVID and everything else that's going on around us. It's a little bit of the unknown, but we know, given the present circumstances, that it's a doable situation to literally have a ribbon-cutting ceremony sometime August, September of 2021. So we've got a lot of things that have got to really fall into place over here. We've got to watch them very, very carefully. And I guess it's like anything else. It's just got to be managed and massaged, and we just got to be critical of where we are. And so hopefully, in short, we're ready to break ground end of this year, and we're ready to do a ribbon cutting towards the August, September of 2021. I don't know if anybody's got any questions at this stage. I just want to add one thing and then certainly take any questions. We have posted all of our documentation in the cloud, and obviously that's not for the world to see, but it certainly is there for the board and the stakeholders. And for those of you that are interested and that would like to look at any of the documents, we'll certainly give you all of the necessary access and passwords, and please feel free to look around. The whole objective over here is to keep this very transparent and make sure that everybody is comfortable and knows what is going on over here. So I guess that would kind of bring me to the end of the financial presentation. Any questions at this stage in time, we'll certainly try and field them.
Let me ask the board, if, at this point, if they have any specific questions about any part of that presentation. Board members?
No questions.
No questions, okay.
No questions.
All right, what,
Well,
go ahead.
we thank you very much for taking the time to hear us, and hopefully we gave you something that is somewhat meaningful. We apologize that the venue isn't perfect, but it's the best we can do, hopefully, under the circumstances.
Yeah. Well, we thank you very much for taking the time and considering the circumstances. It was a very good presentation, and we thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, just a quick question and comment to Mr. Soto. Are you making any projections on the energy costs for that? You need to be planning and extrapolating numbers and those kinds of things. I think you know that, right, Mr. Soto?
Yes, I do. It's kind of early right now to make those predictions because we don't know exactly what kind of, units, air conditioning units are going to be placed in there, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's early on the process right now, but yeah, definitely that's one of the considerations, of course, because it's going to be an expenditure for once it's done, an additional expenditure in utilities or electricity.
Yeah.
Hey, Cesar, just chime in real quick on that. As part of the requirements for the school facility board, we are required to meet the latest energy calculations and showing compliance with the energy code. And, the existing campus is 40, 50 years old. And so you've got 40, 50-year-old technology. We're required to actually have state-of-the-art technology. So this will be quite a bit more efficient than you currently have per square foot.
Good.
Okay, yeah, that's important, and I think as a board, we just don't want to get that lost in the shuffle that we're not preparing for that. That's why I mentioned to Mr. Soto, and I know it's early, but it's something for him to be thinking about. And you said the campus is 50 years old. It was built in 1949. With the exception of the last two wings, they came later. But that building, that whole plant is 1949. Just so you know.
Yes. And if I may add, just as not a question, a comment, but one of the challenging components of one of the many challenges, besides obviously the funding and the constraints of the SFB budget, obviously. By the addition of these new buildings, which are really intended for classroom space, it has taken a lot of the space that is normally being used by athletics for our practice fields, which are behind the gymnasium. So as much as we really try to, we've had many, many meetings to try to kind of make the best of both worlds, but in the future, we will need to look at options for providing other additional practice fields that are safe for students, and that, students have that, because we don't have we have other land elsewhere, but it's going to cost the district to equip those fields and make them, accessible for students.
Very good. All right, thank you. Let's move on, and we go to item 1F, public comments. And we do have one, and just for clarification, I want to make sure we're sure on this. In the comment, before I read the comment in its entirety, I just want to make sure it's a public comment, because the person says these are not necessarily issues that we need to be addressed publicly with board members, but they at least should be aware of them. Is she talking about her public comments, or is she talking about the contents regarding board members?
Maybe what I'm thinking is just the accessibility to board members. That's what I gathered from that.
But, so this was, it wasn't addressed to the administration, it was addressed to the board?
To the board, right? Yes.
Okay, great, because I
Yes.
want to read it, because I
Uh-huh.
think it's important that the
Yes.
board know what the concern is. And it's from Dr. Christine Gomez, and it says, "I would like to start by addressing the difficulty of reaching the DUSD school board members, beginning with the difficulty of obtaining information concerning the upcoming school board meetings. When we originally looked to find out times and dates of the meetings, of the information that was listed was incorrect. After an email was sent trying to determine the correct time, the website was changed showing correct information for the upcoming meeting, but incorrect information concerning all subsequent meetings. When questions were asked about the procedure for obtaining information, we were told we could listen in on school board meetings, but the only provisions in place to ask questions was to submit written questions in advance to Mrs. Valenzuela. She would then read the question or comment to the board. Needless to say, this seems to be a cumbersome process that doesn't truly allow access to the board members. In addition, the current process is difficult or impossible to utilize by some of the less technologically inclined, as well as those dependent on smartphones for these types of communications. All of the above-mentioned difficulties could easily be written off, I think she meant to say, could be written off as simple mistakes and lack of oversight. Then she says, these are not necessarily issues that need to be addressed publicly with the board, but at least should be aware of them. Right now, if an email or phone call is made trying to speak or communicate with a board member, that communique is filtered through one or more people and quite possibly never reaches the intended recipient. I find it hard to believe that a publicly installed figure, such as a school board member or any other politician, cannot have a school district email address that the public can use to bring issues up to them. Then they could at least acknowledge response and decide it merited being brought up by a board member. Currently, Douglas and Bisbee are the only two school boards in Cochise County that don't have school board members' emails accessible on a website to the public. Although we don't react and we don't respond during call to the public, and I'm glad that it was called to the public so that it could be clarified, and I think that's an administrative situation because of the means of communication with the board goes through the administration. And so I'm going to allow Ms. Samaniego to respond to that, not to get into a lot of detail, but it does merit, especially because of all of the things that are happening and how we've had to meet spontaneously to address an issue, and we've done it in the morning because we felt that it was the best time to do it and to address it as early as possible when we found out the information and not wait 2 or 3 days. So there's just been a lot going on, and that's not by way of exculpatory or diversion, but it's more trying to give a little bit. But I'm going to let Mrs. Samaniego explain that because it's a good
Yes,
it's a good observation.
It's good observation and good concerns, and I always welcome anything that we can do to improve our systems. So there's two things. One is obviously being able to comment at a board meeting via the public comments, and so that is. Unfortunately, under the circumstances, normally you would have somebody come to the board and could speak on any item on the agenda or submit a public comment notice. So for every meeting, we will have that availability from our website. The form is there. They can fill it out and submit it by a certain time before a board meeting so that Mrs. Valenzuela can prepare for this board meeting. That comment will be read and addressed here by our governing board, as we always do with any regular public comment. So that's one concern. The other concern is obviously the access to you all as board members. And Ms. Gomez was right that before, if you all remember, there used to be an email access for all of you all. And why that happened or why it became inactive, maybe because it wasn't being utilized or you didn't have many constituents that were emailing you But once an email doesn't get utilized enough, it just kind of becomes inactive. And so with the new upload, new website that we have, your information actually is on there. And board members, you will have your email activated again. And so it is a douglasschools.org email, and anybody will be able to access you directly without having to go through central office. So these are all good things. We're working on them, but that is the reason why that those emails became inactive.
Okay, and then for clarification, the email will be a Douglas Unified School, as it was before.
Yes, they're already on there. I already put them on there.
And then the board members will be able to retrieve them at home, right?
Yes.
Because there will be
A username
an
and-
access for them to, okay, very good. All right,
Right.
Dr.
Well, how
Gomez.
would you access it?
I
Going to the
emailed-
website?
I emailed the board members all the information to access your email address.
Okay.
Item 2, consent agenda items, approval of the following consent agenda items. 1, payroll and expense voucher reports, 1, 2, and 3. And they include expense vouchers, student activities and auxiliary reports, and payroll vouchers. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve.
Second.
By Dr. Gomez, second by
Mr. Sabal?
Mr. Sabal. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item 3A, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Ms. Samaniego, how do you want to handle it?
And that is, as presented, we have one teacher hire, and the other ones are our long-term subs that are filling in those vacancies like Mrs. Cox discussed.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve
So moved?
by Dr. Gomez. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Sabal.
Lindemann.
Lindemann? Okay, I'm sorry. Did he say his name first?
No.
Okay, that's all right. We'll get through this. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3B, discussion action on the approval of classified resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and, we're sad to see some of our support staff, and we have some members that have been with us for a very, very long time, such as Dolores Newman, Roberta Suarez, and so special recognition to them. They've been here for many, many years.
Okay, any problem with replacement, or are you going
We're
to
not,
hold those?
we're going to hold those right now and not replace, and only replace as needed.
Roll call.
I need a
Oh,
motion.
I need a motion, I'm sorry. Entertain a motion
I think I already,
by Dr. Gomez.
didn't we do it already?
No, we
No.
haven't done.
Okay, I move
Second.
that we accept it. Okay?
Dr. Gomez.
And Mr. Lindeman second.
Mr. Lindeman, second, thank you. Roll call.
Second.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item C, discussion action on the approval of athletic resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented.
That's Mr. Carlos Chavez.
Yes.
And does that, he's just giving up the volleyball?
Yeah, he's just giving up volleyball, and he's been a volleyball coach for quite some time, so that will, depending on where athletics go, we may not need to replace it, just depending on how it goes.
Okay, I'm gonna accept an approval of that with regrets, because I tell you, Mr. Chavez, I hired Mr. Chavez, and way back when, and I'm dating him more than I'm dating myself. But he's been in athletics for years and years. He was an outstanding athlete himself in Douglas High School, and that's quite a benchmark to see him leave. So
Yes.
I will, with regrets, I will entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez. Second
Second.
That's Mr. Sabal?
by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3D, discussion information only for certified internal transfers. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, and this is just for informational purposes only. We wanted to keep it inclusive in our board agenda so that everybody knows where people are going. So there is just one change to this information of list of transfers. Michael Molina from 6th grade to 7th grade, and Stephanie Quintero. I was just informed right before the meeting that those individuals are staying within their grade level, so they're not moving up after all. So,
Okay.
okay?
All right, that's information
That's
only.
information, yes.
Item E, discussion action on the approval of administrative transfer. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, and so as presented, Mrs. Geraldina Trevino moving from, transferring from an assistant principal position at Douglas High School to the Curriculum and Federal Programs Director, which we've had vacant since, Mr. Nunez left and some vacancies took place. And obviously, under the circumstances that we've been dealing with, the support that's going to come from that department to our teachers during this online distance learning needed somebody to provide full attention and support. So Mrs. Geraldina is being presented.
And also very well qualified
Yes,
for that
yes.
position. And then also, board members, as part of the backup information, from an assistant principal of $65,876 to curriculum and federal programs director, we're approving a salary of $77,000. All right? So I'll entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez. Second?
Second. Sabal.
Sabal, second.
I have a little discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes. And this is just information that I'm asking. So who's doing the grants now?
Right now, Denise Cox has been still overseeing them, because we didn't have anybody in there right now. And so basically, she'll still continue to access them and monitor them until she is able to mentor and Mrs.
Somebody.
Trevino.
Okay.
Because grants is
But
a whole nother
but
beast.
not Heraldina.
No, not right now.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item F, discussion action on the approval of donations received by Douglas Unified School District Number 27, Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and I want to really thank Mr. and Mrs. Doctor, who are teachers within our community and our district, and she took the honor and worked over the summer to create these, make 30 masks to donate to our staff.
Entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez. Second?
Second.
Mr. Sabal?
Sabal.
Sabal. Roll call.
Second.
Got it.
Got it?
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item G, discussion action for the purpose of considering and adopting board resolution regarding school closures and all other related issues. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes. Obviously, after our last board meeting, there was a new executive order that came through by the governor. And with that executive order is a new resolution that was put forth. And the resolution obviously is basically everything that encompasses the reopening of schools that we have already addressed to include this new item. Along with this board resolution, obviously, is a couple new items that we've already discussed in the last special board meeting, which is being able to continue paying our employees. So as long as and these are our hourly employees that are committed to do the jobs that they are assigned to do. We discussed that in our last meeting that support staff is going to have to take on different roles, being that we're not going to have as many children attend our schools 5 days a week during our distance learning program. So that will affect many of our support staff, from bus drivers to our school security to our instructional support staff. So it really, that resolution includes that, and it also includes the fact that we have to have our distance learning plan uploaded and submitted to ADE by August the 14th. We have to have on-site learning spaces provided for our children. We have to have all of this posted on our websites. It includes the funding issue, which we now know that we can get 100% funding. So as long as we abide by all the guidelines that under the executive order. You asked me, I'm also discussing, because all related items, you also asked me at last board meeting to bring some further information on the trust waiver that was provided to school districts. And actually just today, there was another document that came out from the trust pertaining to the liability coverage and dealing with the waiver. And so I'm just going to give you a little background information on what the trust sent. And literally, they sent it out this around noon. So we know that the trust gave us a waiver, and Mr. Burain asked, well, what does this waiver do? The waiver was for parents to be able to fill out and complete and sign, stating that they understood that sending their children to schools was, at their own risk, because there was nothing that we could do to prevent COVID-19 virus at schools. So the background information that the trust provided is that initially they said that the trust was not going to cover any related lawsuits or issues or losses dealing with COVID-19, because they were taking it as simply as another flu or another cold, and we know we can't prevent that. However, just today, I guess they had gathered more information, and the waiver and the protocol for parents to sign an initial that they are committing themselves to following all the 16 steps in order to send children to school. Now, what they're doing is they are providing a liability endorsement for school districts, and they would be adding that to the endorsement in order to cover districts for COVID-19 related issues that come about within the district. Obviously, that is another additional funding or cost to the district. And so they have a whole document, and for example, just for the annual cost for a district of our size would be about $45,000 to get that coverage added to our trust agreement. They are, the date of the coverage will be effective July 1, 2020 if we decide to go with it, and we do have to sign the endorsement and by September 15th in order for that coverage to start on the July 1st. If we don't submit, or if we don't sign by September 15th, then obviously we won't have that coverage. So that just came new today. I think they had a lot of push from districts in knowing that they weren't going to be covered, and that there was nothing that the trust was could do. So this was their only way to provide some additional coverage.
When you say endorsement, you mean they added an indemnity
An
clause?
indemnity clause, yes.
That covers COVID? No.
Yes.
So just so that the board's clear, that means that if we want to avail ourselves to that, then we have to pay $40,000
Yes. Yes.
extra a year?
Extra a year. It's about $45,000. So it's all based on the ADM count from a school district. So I was speaking to Mr. Soto earlier today about this document and what his thoughts were. And obviously, it would be, I think, in our best interest to pay the coverage. We still have a little bit more digging to do in terms of the information on here, because it just came in like at 2 o'clock today.
Would it be retroactive to the date?
It would.
In other words, the point being that we're not indemnified now. So if we have to wait till
July
the board
1.
approves that till July,
Yes.
then what about, the clock is ticking now. What about any lawsuits prior to that?
Well, it says if districts want the coverage retroactive to July 1st, the endorsement must be signed and returned to the trust by September 15th.
By September the 15th?
September 15th, yes. So we have a board meeting coming up, September the 1st? That would be our next meeting. I did have a conversation with Mr. Soto regarding whether this would be obviously something we'd have to bring to the board because it's going to be additional money.
Right.
That's going to cost us, and it is quite a bit, $45,000. The other part that was interesting here is that they asked, several districts had been asking the trust whether CARES Act funds could pay for the endorsement. And their answer is that they've heard conflicting information as to whether the premiums can be payable through the CARES Act funds. So any updates and changes received, they will communicate to the members. So
Excuse me, they will communicate to who?
To our member, to the members, to us, to all the
Right.
districts that are members, because they don't have an answer for that.
Right, okay.
So I just want further guidance from you as a board on
Well,
what we
I
can
think,
do.
and we're not going to get into a
Yeah,
discussion about it, but
We can bring it.
let me just get a quick feeling from the board. Board members, how do you feel about pursuing that at the next meeting?
Well,
This is Linda Venda. I think that is a worthy option, and we should do that for full coverage.
Okay,
Yes, this is Mr. Ramos. I feel strongly that we should get that coverage, but first have all the information as to when it starts, the coverage starts for the district.
Yeah, it would start July
That's all.
1st. It would be retroactive July 1st.
okay, Dr. Gomez.
Okay.
Sabal,
No, go ahead.
No, I strongly think when you just before you said the price, I was expecting like something a lot higher, and 45 is, to me, is it's a good price. I sort
Yeah,
certainly suggest
it would be, as board members, we would be remiss and irresponsible if we didn't take it. I mean, that to indemnify the district
Yes.
above all. Of course, board members included, but I mean, the
Exactly.
district.
And there is, like I told Mr. Seth Soto to become extremely familiar with this new coverage possibility, because they do have trust, it's called Trust COVID-19 Liability Endorsement Deductibles. So there's even different deductibles for different types of coverages. And interestingly enough, because a lot of districts, and we've had a couple parents that have refused to sign the waiver, but some of the questions here, it says, if a parent refuses to sign the waiver or acknowledgement form and substantially files a claim, does a claim result in the $20,000 deductible? So there's just a lot of questions that we've got to look at, but I think it would
Okay.
be very beneficial for us to consider this.
Very good, that's good information.
Okay.
Now, let's get back to the resolution before
Yes.
because we need to take action on that. Board members, did you get an opportunity to look at the resolution? Did all you board members get an opportunity to see the resolution? Alma, they got a copy of it? Okay, I don't think, it's going to be posted on the website, right? And I don't think there's anything there or reason that we need to read the whole thing. However, I do think there's just two differences and two comments made there that are very important, and especially to the administration that are going to be working on a daily basis and being confronted with all these different situations, because part of the resolution says, whereas the governing board wishes to resume educational activities and business operations for the 2020-21 school year in a manner that is consistent with existing executive orders, but with recognition that there are many unknowns about future conditions that affect the district's ability to conduct its educational mission and other activities, and that current executive orders may be superseded or modified by future executive orders or federal or state laws. In other words, they recognize that today's the first day of school, but the administration on a daily basis is going to be confronted with things that they never even imagined could happen regarding this. So they're making it very clear in there
Yes.
that they recognize that's going to happen, and that hopefully the public will understand that will happen. And then again, they reiterate and I think it's important, the number 6 in the order 6 of executive order, that regarding the governing board determining who works where, and that the board continue to pay them if the board feels that what they're offering is a worthy assignment and duty, and we definitely do that, and we definitely want to do that, and we encourage all our employees to do it. And then the last one that's important is that the governing board authorized the superintendent to temporarily suspend compliance or implementation of the same as needed to comply with applicable laws, regulations, orders, and guidelines, and to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the school community, and to efficiently and effectively operate district programs and services during the COVID-19 pandemic. Should the superintendent exercise the discretion authorized by this section, the superintendent shall provide the governing board with prompt notice of actions taken. That's important because everybody needs to know that we all are governed by a set of rules and ordinances, and we definitely adhere to them. However, she has the opportunity by the governor's order to do like the transfer that she just mentioned, to do other things that are outside the purview or authority of that policy. So we just want to make that clear. All right, so you need a motion on this, right?
Yes.
You want to approve that? So members of the board, if you don't have any, we'll get into the discussion after I entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
By Dr. Gomez. Second?
Second.
Mr. Sabal.
Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Members of the board, any comments regarding that resolution? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos? Did he answer?
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes. Item H, discussion action on approval for early entrance to kindergarten outside of compulsory attendance age requirements for student A, student B, and student C.
Yes.
Ms. Samaniego, that's a yearly thing, right?
Yes, and this is as presented. These children's birthdays is after the limit, and we bring them before you today. These students have already been tested and are ready to begin in kindergarten with your approval.
Entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez. Second?
Second.
Mr. Sabal?
Mr. Sabal. Discussion?
Yes.
Discussion? Roll call.
Yes, I just want to question here, Mr. Murray.
Yeah, go ahead,
Mr.
Mr.
Samaniego, the testing, the testing done on these children, they came back that these children are capable of doing kindergarten work at the age, they're slightly younger, and sometimes it hampers their ability to learn. But these children have been tested, you say already?
Yes.
And their test shows that they're capable of doing well in kindergarten.
Yes, and obviously we always have a number of students and parents that are requesting this, but not everybody is ready. And so these three children, with the knowledge of our testers, yes, they are ready.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes. Item I, discussion on AIA rules and regulations regarding Douglas High School athletics.
Yes.
Ms. Samaniego.
And I don't know if Mr.
There we
Angel,
go.
Mr. Angel and Mr. Walker are on, but I'll just give a brief update and then the gentleman can chime in. So I've been meeting with Mr. Walker and Mr. Ortega, obviously, to discuss athletics, which is a whole nother component of this distance learning part. They've been meeting with some of their colleagues around the Southern Arizona region to get more guidance on what other districts are doing. And so last week, Mr. Ortega attended a Southern Arizona Athletic Director meeting. They had one person, I believe, or several people from the AIA also providing guidance. And every school district is under the same premise of, what do we do with athletics? Can we move forward? Can we not? Do we push back our dates? And obviously, a huge concern in our community is obviously bringing kids in for physical sports, practice face to face, the interactions that they have in football and volleyball and all of these sports. And so it is a concern. But Mr. Ortega, Mr. Walker, can you just give us an update?
Yeah, good evening. This is Angel Ortega. I'm the athletic director at Douglas High School. Mr. Brain, board members. Just to kind of piggyback off of what Mrs. Samaniego was talking about, it wasn't really more of an idea. It wasn't really more of what do we do. I think the majority of the school districts in Tucson have already made that decision to postpone their fall sports into September or even to October. We've heard of a date as early as September 7th, but they're following along more of the lines of what our thoughts were, that, you know, if there's no in-person instruction, the in-person athletics too must be postponed. So as we spoke last week, even having that discussion with Mr. Walker, even if we had wanted to begin during that date, it would be difficult to hold any kind of games or matches because Tucson right now is on that shutdown as well. But again, Mrs. Samaniego is correct. I did meet with those within that Southern Arizona region. Again, all of those schools that we do eventually compete with, so they're all on that same boat as we are.
So basically, Mr. Ortega, we're pushing back athletics until we're able to start and have more information, whether that is aligned to when we have in-person instruction going on, or we can take a look and see what the athletic world is looking at come September, October.
Well,
Yeah. So, go ahead.
go ahead, Mr. Ortega.
So mine and Mr. Walker's recommendation would be that we revisit this during the September board meeting. We look and see what those other schools are in that surrounding area are doing as well, and we go from there.
Okay, if the administration at the high school recommends that, and they best know what the situation is, there's no action to be taken, it's just for information. I think we'll just move on to the next item and thank them for being vigilant and monitoring that. And again, if that's a recommendation, let's just move on and go to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Ortega and Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Discussion, item J, discussion action on approval of agreement between Public Consulting Group Incorporated, PCG, and Douglas Unified School District for Medicaid School-Based Claiming Program. That's a very good program.
Yes.
Uh,
So this is the annual agreement that we have to sign, and will allow DUSD to bill for Medicaid services that we provide to our ESS children.
Okay, let's entertain a motion to approve. By Dr. Gomez, second
Second.
Mr. Sabal.
by Mr. Sabal. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item K, discussion action pursuant to policy BGF to temporarily suspend policy BGB requiring 2 readings of the proposed policies prior to approval of the adoption in order to approve the following policy advisories immediately upon the first reading. And those advisories are policy advisory number 672, deals with staff personnel security and safety. Policy advisory 673, dealing with basic instructional program. Policy advisory number 674, regulation regarding student dress. Policy advisory number 675, policy KB, parent involvement in education. And policy advisory number 676, visitors to schools. Well, before we do that, go ahead, Ms. Samaniego,
Yes.
just kind of highlight what the
Yeah,
changes
so
are
these
and why.
policies came the day after our last board meeting, and basically these policies are necessary for the district to be in compliance with any COVID-19 requirements for the health and safety of district staff and students. So this is why we're asking for you to temporarily suspend the first and second reading before those can be adopted.
Okay, entertain a motion to do that
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez, second.
And second,
Mr. Zapata.
second, Sabal.
Who hit it first?
Mr. Lindeman?
Mr. Lindeman, second by Mr.
Mr.
Lindeman.
Sabal, Mr. Sabal
Oh, Mr.
seconded.
Sabal, I'm sorry, Mr. Sabal.
Oh, okay, thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 4, discussion items, request for future agenda items, members of the board. 5, announcements. Ms.
Okay,
Samaniego.
just a reminder to all of our parents out there and students, our first day of school starts August the 17th, 2020, bright and early at 8 a.m. And again, this is through our online distance learning platform. One more announcement, on our websites, and all staff have received the COVID-19 protocol for employees and students. We urge all of our parents to access the protocol handbook, as we have very specific information related to COVID-19 that's going to take place in our schools. Our staff has to read it and acknowledge that they read it. So that is already posted. And our next regular board meeting is September 1st at 5 p.m.
Item number 6, executive session. The governing board may vote into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, subsection A1, for the following personnel matter. A, consideration of a 2020-2021 certified teacher to be released from contract. B, consideration of a 2020-2021 certified teacher to be released from her contract. Entertain a motion to go into executive session
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez. Second.
Second,
Who is it?
then nobody said
Nobody
it.
else.
Is there,
Second.
Oh, Mr.
Second.
Lindeman?
Mr. Lindeman?
roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes.
And Mr. Bahrain, item B did ask to have this in open session.
Item B?
Uh-huh, yes.
Okay, let's do that now then.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and give the particulars on, when did the person say, I understand that,
Today
She
or
said it
yesterday? Today?
Today.
when?
Today.
Today?
Yes, it was at 10:24 this morning.
Okay, so we're still in open session, and can I see the request? Please? Okay. Well, that's what, I want to clarify that language. Did the person understand what the question was? Because to me, it says open session is fine by me. In other words, whatever. Does that person want that? Are you sure that they want it here? Because I don't want to get into open session and start discussing all these things, and then she comes back
Yeah,
and
she-
says, I didn't know you were going to say all those things about me.
She received the notification, and then because she is no longer here, then she communicated that via email. So whether she understood exactly, I don't think I can answer that, and I don't think Mrs. Valenzuela can. The letter specifically says, the language about discussing in executive session. or
Well,
not. But
I don't want to play a semantics game here, but open session's fine by me. That's a non sequitur. I mean, I don't know whether that means yes or no. I mean, members of the board, members of the board, let me tell you why I'm making an issue of this, is because if we discuss this in open session, and there's some negative information that comes out regarding a personnel matter, and dealing with her performance or whatever, and then she comes back and says, I didn't know that you were going to discuss that, all of that. She just thinks maybe that we're going to say, we'll release her, yes or no, but she doesn't know about the discussion. I'm very apprehensive about it.
Mr. President?
Yes. Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
President.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramos.
This is Mr. Ramos. She didn't directly say yes or no. And for our benefit, it's best to go into executive session instead of open session, just to avoid any consequences.
Well, I'd even.
But she didn't say.
No, but if she wanted it open, Mr. Ramos, because a lot of times the strategy is that people that request it to be open in open session, they bank on a lot of psychology that things aren't going to be said and that people are going to be reluctant to be candid about what's going on. And if we go into executive session and then she comes back and says, you people, and I know what you're saying, it's better to be cautious, but if she comes back and then says, I wanted it in open session, but she wasn't clear about it, and we do it in executive session, my recommendation is to get in touch with her, and I don't know is there any urgency to do this and postpone it? Because just from my experience, I personally don't want to do it either way unless we know what she says.
Well, the urgency is obviously that she's left town, and she is not returning. And so we had to obviously find who's going to replace in that position because she's not returning. She left town. So that would be the other urgency, but I do have, I believe there's an email with her phone number.
I have her phone number.
You have her? You want to call her and explain to her,
Is she available?
see if she answers?
Yes, let me call.
And if she understands exactly what open session means?
Because to be quite honest with you, there's a serious consideration here that I personally am going to raise about her request, making that request. And I'm not reluctant at all to do it in open session if she wants it.
Mr. Brian, you better get a classification. You're going to look into this.
Well, they're trying to get a hold of her, Mr. Sabal.
Okay.
I want to do it outside and see if she answers you.
Yeah, I would be very careful.
While they're
Maybe she
doing that,
won't
let's
answer.
take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break.
No answer?
let's go into executive session and do the other one.
Okay.
And we've already voted on going into executive session, so let's do the other one. And then in the meantime, hopefully, we can make some communication. So, members of the board, we're in executive session now.
So anybody that's, like Mr. Soto and everybody have to disconnect, right?
Yes, please.
And members of the board, I'll tell you, and this isn't speaking about that person in particular because of the executive session now, but the request on her break is much different than anybody else's. If you look at the language in her letter, and that could cause her a problem as far as I'm concerned with the State Board of Education, but that's the reason I don't want to get into, unless she specifically says, because I'll say all that. It's an unprofessional, what she's doing is very unprofessional. It's an unprofessional act, which could have her certificate revoked. So we'll come back to that. Let's do Ms. Russell.
Yes. So Ms. Russell is a class.
We're back in open session, and members of the board, on the request by Mrs. Thorell, Tracy Russell, I'll entertain a motion to approve with no liquidated damages
There she is.
and eligible for rehire, Ms. Samaniego?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to,
I move that we accept the resignation.
Second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Let me see that letter from Via Hermosa.
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Which one, the, Alma has it.
yes,
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Bow.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Okay, we're back to the discussion on Via Hermosa. Oh, here it is.
Question, Mr. Brain?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I know that I've signed for 2 pay vouchers. Have these people been paid?
No, no,
Okay.
It's a good question.
yes. No.
You have to go on to, you know, members of the board, policy, district policy regarding liquidated damages. Let me just refresh your memory, because this is along the lines of the request that we had the discussion on whether that person wanted it, and the ambiguity of whether it was open or closed. But liquidated damages are very serious, and but even more serious than that is the board has the option to not accept the resignation, period, without any liquidated damages. It would just be a straightforward denial for, and then in that case, if the person proceeds and leaves the district, then the board can, under not only their policy, but State Board of Education guidelines, report this individual for an unprofessional act. And the consequences of that are very severe if a person plans to stay in the educational field, and that's loss of their certificate. And a blatant breaking of a contract, if the board hasn't accepted it and denied it because of the circumstances, a blatant breakage of a contract is looked on very severely by the State Board of Education. So that's the reason that I wanted to be extremely careful regarding this one, because the circumstances with this individual's request are much different than the prior request and ones we've seen in the past. And if you look at the letter, the reasons given for wanting the release from the contract are not acceptable by our policy. So there could be some severe circumstances. All right, so having said all of that, severe consequences as well. Having said all of that, board members, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to request to take this off the agenda and have us come back after there's a clarification as to whether they wanted an open meeting or not, because I think either way the board would have some liability. So I'm going to ask board members how you feel about me taking it off the agenda, and then Ms. Samaniego, what is the urgency? The person that's going to suffer is going to be her, because we haven't acted on it. And if she signs another contract someplace, and I understand that she may have,
Yeah, I believe she did.
that even makes it more significant, because she's compounded that unprofessional act by signing another contract when she hasn't been released from this one. Now, I don't need to extrapolate all of the circumstances, but so board members, how do you feel if I take this off the agenda, if Ms. Samaniego doesn't object, and the only occurrence would be that she wouldn't be released at all because we didn't act on it, period. We didn't even address it, okay?
Mr. Ramos, I feel okay with that decision.
To remove it?
Mr. Lindeman, I agree with that. I was not able to read any of the information on my computer, and so I don't have any information about this case, so it's best that we take it off.
I agree.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
You don't have a problem taking it off the, okay, then I'm just going to remove it from the agenda, which means there was no action taken one way or the other because we didn't address it, period. What else do we have?
And that would be it.
We had brought in
Pardon me?
the HR director, and in case she could give us some,
Oh, do you have some information?
No,
okay, then we
Okay.
just what is presented.
Yeah, you could have been in the executive session with us, okay?
do we need a motion?
All right, we
We're
will,
good.
we will leave it at that, and hopefully you can get in touch with her. The onus is on her, it's not on the board. Entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Dr. Gomez, second. There's a second,